The station was silent. Too silent. For a place meant to be a crossroads of the galaxy, bustling with life, the quiet was an alarm bell. Overhead, the bright lights flickered, casting long, dancing shadows along the cold metal walls. Mira, a young Terran ambassador, walked down the corridor. Her footsteps were the only sound echoing in the vast emptiness. Her uniform was crisp and neat, but it couldn't hide the faint scratches on her arms, or the dark bruise blooming near her jaw. She held her head high, hoping no one would notice. A small security drone floated beside her, its red sensor lights sweeping back and forth, scanning for any sign of danger. Mira's lips moved, a whisper so quiet it was almost lost. "I'm fine." But the drone knew better. It registered her racing heart, the slight tremble in her hands, the scent of fear that clung to her clothes like a second skin. Miles away, deep within the station's living quarters, 3 small alien cubs felt a sudden jolt. Caro, G, and Sen were no ordinary creatures. Their species could sense emotions, waves of feeling that traveled through the very air. Fear, pain, sadness. They felt it all, especially when it came from someone they loved. And they loved Mira. When they first arrived at the station, tiny and terrified, she was the one who cared for them. She taught them words, played games, and filled their world with laughter. She protected them. And now someone had hurt her. The cubs knew it, felt it in their bones. This could not be ignored. The shadows in the corridor moved. A tall figure slipped past behind Mira, a fleeting shape just beyond the camera's view. A glint of metal from a mask, a strange red symbol glowing faintly in the dim light. The cubs stiffened. Their ears perked up, their tails twitched. Who did this to her? The thought was a silent roar shared between them. Mira reached the docking bay, her steps slowing to a halt. She clutched her arm, a small wound throbbing beneath her hand. The drone hovered near her, emitting a series of soft, concerned beeps. Mira managed a weak smile. "I told you, I'm fine," she whispered again. But the words were hollow, a fragile defense against a pain she couldn't hide. Far away, in a small observation room, the cubs were watching. They had tapped into the station's network feeds. Caro's eyes glowed with a faint blue light as he focused on the docking bay. G's tiny claws tapped rapidly on a console, running calculations, tracing ghostly footprints and recent movements. Sen listened, his ears twitching, picking up every subtle vibration through the station's walls. They were a team, and they were determined. They couldn't rest while Mira was in danger. Then, the first clue. A faint, dark smear on the floor panels. Synthetic blood. Not hers. The attacker was wounded. The cubs sprang into action. They were small, yes, but they were incredibly smart. They were fast. And their loyalty to Mira was absolute. As Mira stood in the docking bay, she sensed something was wrong, but she pushed the feeling down. She couldn't show fear. Not here. Not now. Her voice remained soft, a mantra against the rising dread. "I'm fine." But the cubs felt her pain, her fear, and it fueled their growing anger. Suddenly, a loud clang echoed from a nearby maintenance corridor. Mira froze. Her eyes widened as she caught a glimpse of the shadow, the same tall figure, disappearing into the station's dark underbelly. In their room, Caro let out a low, guttural growl. G's claws scraped the console as he pinpointed the intruder's path. Sen's tail twitched, tracking the vibrations. The cubs were small, but they moved with the precision of seasoned hunters. They had never faced a threat like this, but instinct was a powerful guide. Every muscle, every sense, every thought was focused on one goal: protect Mira. The shadow of the attacker reappeared for a moment, pausing at the edge of the docking bay. The figure was clad in sleek black armor marked with those strange symbols. Beneath the mask, its eyes glowed an ominous red. Caro hissed. G bared his tiny sharp teeth. Sen crouched low, a coiled spring ready to be unleashed. Mira, sensing the immediate danger, clenched her fists. She didn't run. Her voice remained steady, a remarkable feat as her body trembled. "I'm fine." The cubs communicated without a sound. their minds linked in perfect sync. The thought was one: we will find him. We will stop him. No one hurts our human. With a sudden burst of coordinated speed, the cubs leaped into the maintenance ducts. They navigated the narrow, dark passages with effortless grace, following the faint scent, the vibration of footsteps, the echo of movement. The station was a labyrinth, but they never faltered. Every corner was a potential ambush, every shadow a hiding place for their enemy. Time blurred. Then, a metallic sound, a heavy step on a grate just below them. The cubs froze, listening. The shadow had slowed. Caro's heat vision traced a faint outline through the floor. G hacked a nearby terminal, bringing up camera feeds of the level below. Sen's sharp ears detected the faintest hiss of air from a vent. They had him. The enemy was fast, strong, and clearly dangerous. But the cubs didn't care. They had Mira to protect. No threat would escape their hunt. Back in the docking bay, unaware of the silent guardians closing in on her attacker, Mira whispered one last time into the empty air, "I'm fine." But this time, her words were a signal. The cubs were already moving, the hunt had begun, and whoever had hurt her was about to learn a very important lesson. Terrans are never truly alone. And sometimes, the smallest guardians carry the fiercest fury. The maintenance ducts were dark, tight, and winding, but to the cubs they were a familiar hunting ground. They moved like shadows through the steel labyrinth. Caro led the way, his heat vision piercing the darkness, scanning every corner and junction for the slightest sign of their target. Close behind, G's sharp claws tapped lightly against the terminals they passed. With each touch he was hacking doors, rerouting vent access, and a step ahead of their quarry. Bringing up the rear was Sen, his senses on high alert. His ears, impossibly sharp, twitched at every sound, filtering the station's hum to isolate even the faintest scuff of a boot or the whisper of cloth against metal. This was a new kind of hunt for them. They weren't tracking prey for sport or food. They were tracking a danger, a predator who had dared to harm Mira, their human, the one who had shown them kindness, given them a home, and offered them a love they never knew existed. An inferno of anger and cold determination burned in their small hearts. This was personal. Ahead, a shadow flickered in the vents. The intruder. He had no idea he was being followed, that his every move was being watched. He had been confident, fast, and ruthless in his attack on Mira, but he had made one fatal error. He underestimated her protectors. Caro's tail twitched. He could taste the predator's fear on the recycled air, faint but undeniable. He sent a silent message to his brothers, a thought shared between them. He's afraid. He knows we're close. But he's dangerous. Stay alert. G's claws clicked once in reply. He had already breached the station ES surveillance network and seized control of the lighting systems on the lower decks. Every camera, every vent, every doorway was now their ally. The cubs worked as one mind in three bodies. They were small, but their combined intelligence, predatory instincts, and unwavering loyalty made them a force to be reckoned with. Through a grate, they heard a voice, deep, rough, and laced with menace. The mercenary was speaking into a communicator. She fought harder than expected. Keep the codes ready. We cannot fail. The cubs stiffened. Codes. What codes? His plan was bigger than just a simple assault. He was trying to take control of the station. He was trying to take Mira. Sen let out a soft, threatening hiss. He heard it then. The subtle slide of a vent cover opening below, followed by the heavy tread of footsteps on the metal floor. Without a sound, the cubs dropped from the ductwork to the lower deck. Long, distorted shadows danced across the walls as the emergency lights flickered. The mercenary moved with trained precision, his weapon sweeping the area. He paused near a terminal, his gloved hand keying in commands. Caro's eyes glowed a fierce red, but before he could lunge, G acted, hacking the terminal remotely and flooding it with corrupted data. A shower of sparks erupted from the console. The mercenary cursed, stumbling back in surprise, and in that moment the cubs sprang. They moved with the speed of thought. Caro launched himself from the shadows, claws extended. The mercenary barely dodged, swinging an energized baton that hissed through the air. More sparks flew as it connected with the wall. G darted in low, his claws tearing through the side panels of the terminal, creating a makeshift barrier to block the attacker's line of sight. From above, Sen dropped silently, his tail flicking like a whip to knock the communicator from the mercenary's hand. He stumbled, shock registering on his face, but he recovered quickly. He was bigger, stronger, and armed, but he had never fought anything like them. Caro hissed, a signal for the final phase of their attack. All three cubs moved at once, a coordinated storm of fur and claws. They were small, but they moved like a perfect machine, circling, darting, and leaping with impossible speed. The mercenary swung his baton, striking nothing but air. Every time he attacked, the cubs were already gone, vanishing into the shadows only to reappear and strike from a new, unexpected angle. He roared in frustration, activating a hidden blade that extended from his gauntlet. He swung wildly, the blade screeching against the metal walls. But the cubs were smarter. They used the station itself as their weapon. The shadows were their camouflage, the vents their highways. G's claws tapped a nearby panel, and a maintenance hatch sprang open at the mercenary's feet. As he stumbled, Caro ran along the ceiling like an insect, positioning himself directly above. Sen crouched low, muscles coiled, ready to leap. The mercenary froze, finally realizing he was completely surrounded. The glowing eyes of the cubs pinned him from every angle. This wasn't a fight anymore. It was a reckoning. Suddenly, he pulled a strange device from his belt. A pulse of energy blasted through the corridor, knocking the cubs back. They skidded across the floor, dazed but uninjured. The station lights flickered and died, plunging them into a terrifying red emergency glow. The mercenary advanced slowly, his silhouette monstrous, confident he now had the upper hand. But he didn't know their greatest strength. Their bond with Mira. From a nearby vent her voice rang out, clear and strong. "Stop! Leave him, but follow him." The cubs froze. She had understood. They needed to track him, not just defeat him. The hunt became smarter, more focused. They needed to uncover the truth. The mercenary, thinking he'd scared them off, turned and ran for the airlock, clutching the stolen data. Silently, the cubs followed. Finally, they cornered him in a narrow maintenance corridor. Sparks rained down from broken panels. He turned, his weapon raised. "This ends now," Caro growled, his voice a low rumble. The mercenary laughed, a cold, cruel sound. "Tiny things. You think you can stop me?" The cubs didn't answer with words. They answered with movement. As one, they surged forward. There was no fear, no hesitation, only purpose. Tonight, the hunter would learn a valuable lesson. No one hurts their human. And for him, the hunt had only just begun. The corridor was narrow, the lights flickering like dying stars. Sparks rained from broken panels and the hum of machinery mixed with the mercenary's heavy breathing. He turned slowly, his black armor glinting, a mask hiding his face, red eyes glowing like warning lights. Every single movement just screamed danger. The cubs crouched low, their own eyes glowing, tails flicking nervously. Caro led the way, his muscles tense. G stayed close, tapping at the terminals, searching for anything he could use. Sen was silent, his ears flattened, listening for the slightest sign of an attack. The mercenary raised his weapon, a sleek energy baton humming with deadly power. Sparks jumped along its edges. "You think you can stop me?" he hissed, his voice cold and mechanical. Caro growled, low and fierce. He felt the anger radiating from the cubs, mixing with fear, determination, and their love for Mira. They may have been small, but together they were unstoppable. The first strike came from G. He darted forward, claws scraping the metal floor, and leaped up to swipe at the mercenary's leg. The mercenary swung the baton, deflecting the attack with a shower of sparks. Just then, Caro jumped from the ceiling, landing squarely on the mercenary's back. The predator roared, swinging wildly, but Caro held on tight. Sen lunged from the side, his tail flicking, knocking the communicator right out of the mercenary's hand. The mercenary spun around, desperately trying to shake the cubs off. His movements were fast, deadly, and precise. But the cubs were faster. Every attack was met with a counterattack. They moved as one, striking, dodging, retreating, then striking again. G hacked the nearby panels, sending sparks flying and smoke curling into the air. The mercenary coughed, anger flaring in his eyes, but his weapon remained dangerous. He swung, hitting Caro and knocking him against the wall. Caro hissed in pain but held his ground. Sen ducked under a swing and bit down hard on the mercenary's armor. Metal scraped, sparks flew. The cub's eyes glowed even brighter now. They could sense the fear beneath the mask, the hesitation he didn't even realize he had. The predator was dangerous, but he was not prepared for this level of fury. He wasn't prepared for the love of someone he had underestimated. The mercenary's laughter echoed through the corridor. Tiny creatures. Worthless. He swung again, stronger this time, the energy crackling. But the cubs were smarter. They dodged, feinting left and right, making him overcommit. Caro hissed, leaping to the side, landing on the wall, then springing to the ceiling. Sen darted forward, his tail striking the mercenary's legs. G leapt onto a console, causing sparks to shower over the floor. The corridor became a storm of light, metal, and motion. The mercenary roared, swinging wildly. He tried to retreat toward the airlock, desperate to escape with the stolen data he was clutching. But the cubs were relentless. Every path he took, every vent he tried, they were there. Striking, blocking, cornering him. From above, Mira's voice rang out, steady and firm despite her bruises and scratches. "Stop him. Don't let him leave." Her command was like fire in their hearts. They moved faster, sharper, coordinated with perfect precision. The mercenary realized too late that he was not just facing 3 small aliens. He was facing a united force that refused to fail. Caro lunged at the mask, scratching and biting. Sen tripped him from the side, and G hurled a small piece of metal, hitting the mercenary's weapon hand. Sparks erupted, and the mercenary staggered. "Impossible!" he yelled, fury and fear mixing in his voice. "I am trained, I am strong." But strength alone couldn't save him. The cubs had strategy, speed, and a loyalty that drove every move. They weren't just attacking. They were hunting, cornering, and preparing to end the threat to Mira once and for all. The corridor narrowed further. The mercenaries' options were shrinking. Sparks from the broken panels created blinding flashes. The metal walls became obstacles. Every move he made, the cubs anticipated. Caro jumped, holding him down. Sen struck from behind, knocking the baton aside. G blocked the only exit. The mercenary finally realized he had nowhere to run. For the first time, he saw the cubs not as small creatures, but as predators. "You will pay for this," he shouted. The cubs only glared. Their fury was silent, controlled. Their focus was absolute. They did not fear him. They feared nothing. From the vents above, Mira watched. She had led them here, knowing the cubs would outsmart him. The predator had underestimated the bond between a human and her alien companions. And now, that bond was about to destroy him. The final strike was coming. The cubs were ready. The narrow corridor seemed to shrink with every passing second. Sparks from broken panels rained down from the ceiling, casting chaotic, dancing shadows on the walls. The mercenary's red eyes glowed with an unholy light, reflecting his pure, unadulterated rage. He had completely underestimated the cubs, and now he was cornered. Every breath he took was measured, calculated, but it wasn't enough. Not against them. Caro crouched low, his muscles coiled like powerful springs, ready to explode into action. Sen circled from the side, ears twitching, tail flicking with nervous tension. And G, the smallest of the 3, darted across the floor, using scattered metal panels to create small obstacles, tiny distractions in this deadly game of cat and mouse. The corridor had become a maze, and the cubs were its masters. The mercenary swung his energy baton in a deadly arc, sending sparks flying with every furious strike. But Caro was faster. He leapt clean over the attack, landing squarely on the predator's back. He hissed, his claws digging futilely into the hard armor. The mercenary roared in frustration, swinging wildly to shake Caro off. As he was distracted, Sen darted forward, striking the back of his legs with lightning speed, trying to buckle his knees. Just then, G leapt onto a nearby console. A cascade of electrical sparks erupted, illuminating the entire corridor in a single, blinding flash of white light. The mercenary instinctively shielded his eyes for just a moment. But a moment was all the cubs needed to readjust their positions. They moved like shadows, small and fast, a blur of motion attacking from multiple directions at once. "You'll never win," the mercenary shouted, frustration and fury lacing his voice. He lashed out at Caro, sending the cub sliding hard across the metal floor. Sparks erupted as Caro's body hit the wall, but he recovered in an instant. Pain did not slow him down. He had a mission: protect Mira. Sen growled low, circling the mercenary like a wolf. His tail lashed out like a whip, striking metal panels and creating even more chaos and noise. Seizing the opportunity, G knocked the communicator from the mercenary's hand. The device clattered to the floor, sparking and buzzing before going silent. The predator cursed under his breath. He was losing control. From a safe distance, Mira watched. She was bruised and fresh blood stained the sleeve of her uniform. But she did not hesitate. She stepped into the corridor, her voice strong, commanding, "Stop! You won't touch him or the station." The mercenary's head snapped toward her, his rage boiling over. He raised his weapon, swinging it toward her in a threatening arc. Sparks flew dangerously close, but the cubs moved instinctively, positioning their bodies between Mira and the predator. A unified hiss echoed in the tight space. "No one hurts our human!" The mercenary lunged, his baton swinging wide. Caro jumped to the side, landing lightly on his feet. Sen struck again, knocking the predator off balance. G darted in, scratching furiously at the back of his armor. The mercenary staggered, struggling to regain his footing. Mira saw her chance. Despite her injuries, she grabbed a small, heavy wrench from the floor. She swung it with all her strength, striking the mercenary's wrist and forcing him to drop the baton. The energy device exploded in a shower of sparks, and the predator cursed loudly in pain and surprise. The cubs did not hesitate. They moved as one, a coordinated and unstoppable force. Caro leapt onto the mercenary's shoulders, biting and clawing at the thick armor. Sen attacked his legs again, tripping him. G pounced from a high console, scratching with terrifying precision. The predator tried to fight back, but every strike was countered by the cub's speed and strategy. He staggered back, his red eyes glowing now with a mixture of fury and fear. He was strong, trained, and dangerous, but the cubs' determination, their intelligence, and their fierce loyalty to Mira were stronger. Mira's voice rang out again, calm but firm. "He can't escape, not tonight." The mercenary turned, trying to flee toward the airlock. He had one last plan: escape with the stolen data, leave the station, and regroup. But the cubs anticipated him. They blocked his path, herding him back into a corner. Caro hissed, jumping to block any escape route. Sen circled, striking with his tail and claws. G darted in front, a tiny, insurmountable wall. The predator realized too late that he was trapped. "This isn't over," he shouted, but his confidence was completely gone. For the first time, he faced creatures he could not outthink or overpower. He had underestimated the bond between Mira and her cubs, and that bond was deadly. Mira stepped forward, wrench still in hand, ready. The cubs crouched low, their eyes glowing, muscles tense. The predator swung one last, desperate time, but they were ready. The corridor echoed with the sound of struggle, growls, and the mercenary's frustrated roars. And then, for a moment, silence. The cubs glared, ready for the next move. Tonight, Mira's human strength and the cubs' unwavering loyalty had kept the station safe. But this battle was far from over. And everyone in that corridor knew one thing for certain: no one hurts Mira, and no one escapes the cubs. The corridor fell quiet, but the air hung thick with tension. Sparks rained down from broken panels, and smoke curled in the flickering emergency lights. The mercenary leaned heavily against the wall, catching his breath. His red eyes glowed from the shadows, but the raw fury in his gaze had sharpened into cold calculation. He was still dangerous, but he was no longer invincible. Nearby, Caro crouched low, his tail flicking nervously, muscles coiled like a spring. Sen stayed close to him, ears pinned back, ready to strike at a moment's notice. G's claws tapped a light, rhythmic beat on the metal floor as he observed every subtle movement, analyzing the mercenary for any weakness. They had cornered him once, but this predator was more than just brute strength. He was cunning, and the cubs knew he was planning something desperate. Mira stepped forward, bruised but radiating a fierce determination. In her hand, she clutched a small, heavy wrench she'd grabbed from a maintenance cart. Her eyes were sharp, unwavering. "He tried to take the station codes," she said. Her voice was quiet, but it cut through the tense silence and carried across the corridor. "He wanted to control the station, and he wanted to control me. I refused. I fought him. But he's clever. He won't give up so easily." At her words, the cubs stiffened. The station codes, the safety of everyone on board. The mercenaries' plan was far worse than they had ever imagined. Every instinct in their small bodies screamed with a newfound urgency. They weren't just protecting Mira anymore. They were protecting their home, their entire world. The mercenary let out a harsh, metallic laugh that echoed through the corridor. "So she fought back," he rasped, his voice low and dripping with menace. "Clever little human, but even clever humans are fragile. You really think your tiny friends can stop me?" Caro let out a low hiss, a deep vibrating sound that was a clear warning. "We don't think. We act. And we protect Mira." Sen growled, beginning to circle the mercenary, his tail whipping back and forth like a whip. G's eyes glowed faintly as his mind raced, calculating angles, escape routes, and the weaknesses in the mercenary's armored suit. The cubs were small, yes, but their combined intelligence, seamless coordination, and fierce loyalty made them far more dangerous than their size suggested. The mercenary's next move became clear. He took a single step back and pressed a hidden button on his armor. A faint, high-pitched hum filled the corridor as a small drone detached from his belt. It was armed, buzzing with energy, as its single red eye scanned the area for threats. His plan was simple: create chaos, strike from a distance, and retreat with the station codes while they were distracted. But the cubs were ready. They had already anticipated his move. Before the drone could even hover, Caro sprang forward, launching himself through the air and landing squarely on top of it. Sparks erupted as his claws tore into its casing, and the device crashed to the floor, useless. At the same time, Sen darted beneath the mercenary's feet, tripping him just enough to throw him off balance. From a vent above, G launched a sharp piece of metal, striking the drone's power core with pinpoint accuracy, sending a final shower of violent sparks across the floor. The mercenary stumbled, his rage boiling over. "Insignificant creatures!" he roared. But he could see now that brute force wasn't going to work. Every attack he tried was countered. Every strategy he attempted was perfectly anticipated. Mira stepped closer, her voice steady and firm. "You can't win. You never understood loyalty, or strength, or courage. You only see weakness in others, and that's why you failed." For a split second, the mercenary froze, startled by her unshakable confidence. It was all the time the cubs needed. Moving as one, they coordinated their attack without a single sound. Caro lunged at his back, claws digging into the seams of his armor. Sen struck from the side, slamming him hard against the wall, and G leaped from above, landing with precise force, pinning him further. He thrashed and struggled, but the cubs' strategy was flawless. They weren't attacking blindly. They were hunting, cornering, and protecting all at once. For the first time, the mercenary realized he was facing a team he couldn't outfight or outthink. The bond between Mira and the cubs gave them a strength that was simply beyond his comprehension. Mira's eyes softened for just a moment as she looked at her small, fierce protectors. "Thank you," she whispered. Her words were small, but the cubs felt them like a triumphant roar. Realizing his plan was collapsing, the mercenary made one last desperate play. He pressed another button, a remote signal to open the nearest airlock and make his escape. But the cubs were already there. Caro's tail flicked, knocking a loose panel into his path. Sen darted forward, striking the device from his hand, and G, already connected to the network, remotely hacked the nearby console, locking down the airlock. The mercenary froze, a flicker of true panic flashing in his eyes. He was trapped. No escape, no tricks, no violence could save him now. The cubs had outsmarted him, cornered him, and proven that even the smallest beings could hold immeasurable power. Mira stepped fully into the corridor, her stance firm, the wrench raised. The cubs flanked her, a unified wall of fur and claws. Together, human and aliens, they were unstoppable. The predator had underestimated the bond between them, and now it would be his downfall. "You cannot escape," Mira said, her voice ringing with finality. "Not from us. Not tonight." The mercenary saw the truth in her words. His plan had failed. He was trapped. And the cubs, small but mighty, were ready to finish what they had begun. The final move was coming. The predator's fate was sealed. The corridor trembled, a symphony of crackling sparks and ragged breathing. The mercenary, a fearsome predator in a masked suit, pressed himself against the wall, his eyes burning red in the gloom. Every path was blocked, every weapon useless, every plan shattered. Against him stood not an army, but 3 small cubs and a woman with a wrench. The cubs, Karo, Sen, and G, crouched low, a coiled spring of muscle and instinct. Karo's claws scraped the metal floor, his tail a restless whip. Sen circled, ears flat, a blur of motion ready to strike. And G, the strategist, his eyes glowing as he calculated every angle, every attack, every defense. They were a perfect team, fast, smart, and utterly relentless. Mira stepped forward, bruised but unbroken. Her wrench glinted in the flickering emergency lights. The earlier blows had shaken her, but now her presence was a beacon, emboldening her small protectors. Together, they were a storm of defiance. The mercenary knew he was trapped. With a guttural growl, he lunged, his energy baton crackling to life. He swung wildly at Karo, but the cub was a phantom. Karo leaped aside, ricocheting off the wall to land squarely on the predator's back. At the same moment, Sen struck from the side, a precise whip of his tail that sent the mercenary staggering. G darted from above, his claws screeching against the man's armor, a shower of sparks creating chaos and confusion. The corridor was a whirlwind of action, the clang of metal, the hiss of sparks, the furious growls of the cubs, and the mercenary's curses echoing in the shadows. But this wasn't just chaos. It was a coordinated assault. Every strike was deliberate, forcing the mercenary back, cornering him inch by agonizing inch. Mira's voice cut through the noise, calm and commanding. "No more running. No more lies. You lose tonight." Snarling, the mercenary tried to retreat toward the airlock, fumbling for a hidden panel on his belt. He was trying to trigger a pulse grenade, something that could blast the entire corridor open. Smoke and sparks erupted from the device. But the cubs were faster. Karo's claws raked across the panel, and with a final fizz, the pulse failed. Sen's tail wrapped around the mercenary's legs, sweeping him off his feet. G pounced from the ceiling, pinning him hard against the wall. The predator thrashed, but every move was anticipated, every attack countered before it even began. Mira closed the distance, her wrench striking the mercenary's side with a solid thud. He stumbled, completely off balance. This was their moment. Karo latched onto his back, Sen struck his legs again, and G bit down on his weapon hand. The energy baton clattered uselessly to the floor. The mercenary roared, red eyes flashing with fury, but his brute strength was no match for their combined intelligence and loyalty. These small, relentless cubs had become the predators, their courage fueled by Mira's own. In a last, desperate act, he broke free and sprinted for the airlock, aiming to jettison himself and the station's codes into the void of space. But the cubs were one step ahead. Karo blocked his path. Sen's tail slapped a control panel on the floor, activating a secondary lock. G darted overhead, cutting off the final escape route. The mercenary froze, pure panic finally showing in his glowing eyes. The corridor, once his hunting ground, was now his cage. He had underestimated the unbreakable bond between Mira and her cubs. "You cannot escape," Mira said, her voice steady as steel, her wrench poised. "Not tonight, not ever." The cubs advanced as one. Karo's claws dug into the mercenary's shoulders. Sen's tail lashed out with punishing precision. G exploited every weak point in the armor. his movements a blur of calculated strikes. With a final coordinated push, they sent the mercenary stumbling back against the airlock. His mask cracked, sparks flying from his damaged suit. He glared at them, a defeated mix of rage and fear in his eyes. He lunged one last time, a final futile gesture. Caro was on his back, Sen took out his legs, and G pinned him to the wall. Mira's wrench tapped his side, a firm final reminder. He was beaten. A roar of frustration escaped him before he slumped to the floor, his red eyes dimming. Silence fell, broken only by the station's gentle hum and the exhausted breaths of Mira and the cubs. She dropped to her knees, a weak smile on her face. The cubs gathered around her, their purrs a soft rumble of relief and pride. They nudged her, their small bodies trembling. "I'm fine. Now," Mira whispered, her voice full of gratitude. The station was safe. She was safe. A new legend was born on the station that day. Never ever harm a Terran under the protection of their family. Because even the smallest guardians can possess the greatest strength. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like and subscribe for more adventures. The corridor was finally quiet. Sparks from broken panels flickered, casting soft shadows on the walls. The mercenary lay defeated, his high-tech devices useless, his plans completely shattered. The station hummed in low, steady tones, as if sighing in relief after a long, hard fight. Mira sank to her knees, the exhaustion finally catching up to her. Bruises lined her arms, scratches marked her face, but her eyes shone with fierce determination and profound relief. Around her, the three cubs, Caro, Sen, and G, nuzzled her gently, their tails flicking with contentment. They had fought so bravely, outsmarting a dangerous predator and defending their human with unwavering loyalty. "I'm fine. Now," Mira whispered, her voice soft but filled with gratitude. The cubs purred in response, their small bodies trembling with pride. Each of them had risked everything to protect her. Though tiny, their courage and intelligence had proven stronger than brute strength. They had shown that loyalty and love could overcome even the deadliest of threats. The station's crew, who had been monitoring the corridor from a safe distance, slowly began to emerge. Their eyes were wide, their mouths slightly open as they stared at the unbelievable scene. Mira, unharmed, the mercenary, defeated, and the three small cubs standing proudly beside her. Whispers spread quickly through the crew. The cubs. They did it. They saved her. Mira offered a weak smile to the crew, but her attention remained fixed on the cubs. She had always known they were special, but tonight, she had seen the full measure of their courage. She realized their small bodies couldn't be measured by size alone. Their hearts were larger than the station itself. Caro nudged her hand with his nose. Sen curled protectively around her legs, and G jumped lightly onto her shoulder. Their eyes glowed softly in the dim light. They were exhausted, but they were victorious. Mira spoke softly, brushing their fur. "You were amazing. I couldn't have done it without you. You're my family, and I'm so proud of you." The cubs responded with soft purrs and affectionate nudges, their small bodies trembling with emotion. In their minds, the words were crystal clear. The human had recognized their courage, and that acknowledgement filled them with an overwhelming sense of pride. On the floor, the defeated mercenary groaned weakly. His mask was cracked, his menacing red eyes dimmed, and his devices lay broken and useless. He had made a fatal mistake. He had underestimated the powerful bond between a human and her guardians. And now he would never rise to threaten them, or anyone on this station ever again. Mira stood up, brushing herself off, and looked around at the station. It had been a terrifyingly close call, but it was safe now. Every crew member, every terminal, every single passageway was secure, and the cubs had played the most crucial role. They weren't just pets, not just cute creatures. Tonight they had been protectors, heroes in their own right. The crew approached slowly, offering nods and quiet congratulations. Some even knelt to gently pet the cubs, feeling the extraordinary intelligence and loyalty that radiated from these small creatures. The story of tonight's events would spread like wildfire across the station, a tale of incredible courage, loyalty, and the unexpected power of family. Mira looked at the cubs one last time before turning to the crew. "They are small," she said, her voice clear and strong. "But they are mighty. They remind us that strength isn't always measured in size or weapons. Sometimes it's measured in heart, loyalty, and courage. Tonight they saved us all." The cubs purred again, wrapping themselves around her legs. She knelt and hugged them tightly, feeling the warmth and trust radiating from their tiny bodies. They had faced a predator, outsmarted him, and defended the entire station. They had done what no one else could. As the station's lights returned to their normal, steady glow, Mira whispered softly, almost to herself, "No one hurts our family. Not now. Not ever." Caro, Sen, and G curled closer, their eyes glowing softly in the light. They had proven their strength, their courage, and their loyalty. But most importantly, they had proven that even the smallest beings could make the biggest difference. The station would never forget this night. Not just because a dangerous mercenary had been defeated, but because the story of a human and her cubs would echo through its corridors as a legend of courage, intelligence, and unity. It would serve as a constant reminder that even in a universe full of dangers, loyalty, love, and determination could conquer the strongest threats. Mira stood tall, the cubs at her side as the crew slowly resumed their duties. Life on the station returned to its familiar rhythm, but the bond between human and alien cubs had deepened beyond measure. They were a family, they were guardians, and together they had faced the darkness and emerged victorious. The cubs nudged her again, tiny but fierce. Mira smiled, a mixture of relief, pride, and deep affection shining in her eyes. Tonight had proven one thing beyond any doubt. Even the smallest beings, when bonded with courage and love, can stand against the deadliest foes. And in that quiet, flickering corridor, under the soft glow of repaired lights, the station slowly returned to something resembling normal after the chaos of the past night. Lights hummed steadily again, machinery worked without throwing sparks, and the crew moved through the corridors with a quiet, careful efficiency. But for Mira and the cubs, nothing would ever be the same. Caro, Sen, and G sat beside her, their small tails flicking, their ears alert. Even though the immediate danger had passed, their senses remained razor-sharp. The bond they shared with Mira had deepened, forged in the crucible of that night. They had faced down a predator, outsmarted him, and protected not only their human but the entire station. Their small bodies had carried a courage far beyond their size. Mira crouched down, gently brushing Caro's paw and smoothing the fur on Sen and G. "You were incredible," she whispered, her voice thick with pride. "I don't know what I would have done without you." The cubs answered with soft purrs and affectionate nudges against her hand. They had proven something important, not just to the station crew, or even to Mira, but to themselves. Their size didn't define their power, their loyalty and intelligence did. Across the station, word of their bravery was spreading like wildfire. Crew members would pause their work, whispering about the small guardians who had outsmarted a hardened mercenary and saved them all. Some just shook their heads in disbelief, while others smiled with open admiration. The stories told about this night would echo through these halls for years to come. Tales of courage, strategy, and a loyalty that defied all expectations. Mira stood up, gazing out of a large viewport at the stars stretching into infinity. She drew a deep breath, feeling the heavy weight of the night finally begin to lift. The galaxy was vast, full of known dangers and unknown threats, but she wasn't afraid anymore, not with the cubs by her side. Caro nudged her hand, his eyes glowing softly in the dim light. Sen curled against her legs, his tail flicking with a steady rhythmic beat, and G, ever the watchful one, leaped lightly onto her shoulder, a tiny warrior, proud and alert. Together, they had confronted a predator who believed that size and strength were everything, and they had proven him spectacularly wrong. But the night had also left a permanent lesson. The galaxy was full of challenges. Every dark corner could hold a new danger. Every shadow could hide a threat. And while this particular mercenary was defeated, Mira and the cubs knew this wouldn't be the last time they faced danger. Their eyes instinctively scanned the corridors, alert to every sound, every vibration. They had learned, grown, and become sharper, faster, and stronger. Every strategy they used tonight would serve them in the future. Every instinct was now honed. Every bond with Mira strengthened. Mira smiled, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. "We are a family," she said softly, "and families protect each other. No matter what comes next, we face it together." For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Mira felt truly safe. The cubs curled closer, purring, creating a tiny fortress of loyalty and courage around her. She knew the galaxy would test them again, but tonight had proven that even the smallest beings could achieve the impossible when they fought for love, loyalty, and protection. Far away, in the dark reaches of space, a faint signal blinked to life, a cold reminder that the mercenary S-allies might still be out there. But the station was ready, and the cubs had shown what it meant to stand firm against any threat. Small as they were, they possessed a courage that rivaled the mightiest of warriors. Mira looked down at them, a new determination hardening her eyes. "No one hurts us. No one hurts our family, not now, not ever." The cubs nudged her again, their soft purrs vibrating through the quiet of the station. Together, they walked back through the corridors, returning to their quarters with their heads held high. The crew watched them go in silent awe, understanding that these tiny guardians had fundamentally changed the rules. Strength wasn't just about muscle or weapons. It was about loyalty, intelligence, courage, and heart. As they passed one last viewport, Mira glanced at the stars again. The galaxy was wide and dangerous, but they were ready. The cubs, small but fierce, had taught her an unforgettable truth, that even the tiniest beings could face the largest threats and win. In the quiet of her quarters, Mira settled down with the cubs. Caro rested his head on her lap, Sen curled beside her, and G nestled onto her shoulder. The station hummed softly around them, its lights flickering like distant stars. And in that quiet moment, Mira knew without a single doubt, together they could face anything. They had survived, fought, and triumphed. The galaxy might be full of danger, but they had each other, and that was stronger than any weapon, any enemy, any odds. The night ended with soft purrs, quiet breaths, and the profound calm that follows a storm. Tomorrow the galaxy would continue its vast, indifferent journey. But tonight, a human and 3 tiny cubs had proven something truly extraordinary. That courage, loyalty, and love could conquer even the darkest threats. They were small, they were fast, they were fierce, and together they were unstoppable. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure.